Hey guys, it's Hoops Convo, and today we're going to be talking about the Toronto Raptors. Are they being overlooked going into next season? But before we do that, if you guys want more future opinions and breakdowns, I'd really appreciate it if you guys can hit that subscribe button, like, comment, all that. Thank you. Now, the Raptors are in a very interesting spot because this past season they surprised a lot of people. This was a team coming off a terrible 2021 year in Tampa, and this past season they won 48 games and placed in the 5th seed. They had so many questions coming in, and Vegas had their over-under total at 36.5, which is understandable because the team didn't really have a clear direction at the time. Siakam was coming off shoulder injury after a tough year in Tampa, the addition of Scotty Barnes and how he's going to fit, and the team being really young and not having the depth. Also, they lost franchise GOAT Kyle Lowry to the Miami Heat that offseason. So there was a lot of valid questions going into this past season. But in typical Raptors fashion, they always seem to surprise. In the last 9 years, they've hit their over on their Vegas win totals 8 times. Ever since Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster have taken over back in 2013, this has been one of the more successful franchises in the NBA. In the 9 years Masai has been running the team, they have the second most wins since 2014, won an NBA championship, made 2 conference finals appearances, made 8 playoff appearances, and won 6 division titles. Masai came in and changed everything about the Raptors. Prior to his arrival, they weren't taken seriously. As a franchise right now, they're trying to get back to what they experienced back in 2019 when they won their first ever NBA championship. For this video, I'm going to briefly talk about some of their core pieces and what I expect from them in the 2023 NBA season. We'll start off with their number 1 option and best player on the team currently, Pascal Siakam. He has one of the most incredible development stories in the entire NBA. This is someone who was viewed as an energy big coming out of New Mexico State, and now he's viewed as an all-NBA player. If we went back 4 years ago prior to the Raptors winning the championship back in 2019, nobody could have saw this arc coming. He has taken a massive leap forward as an offensive player with his scoring and playmaking while also providing elite defense. You could argue he's the best player from the 2016 NBA draft class. I bring that all up because it still feels like he's being disrespected and underrated among the media and other fans. ESPN recently released a list of the top 100 players ranked in the NBA, and Pascal came at number 30, which I fail to understand because he's already a proven number 2 option on a championship team and took his team 2 times to the playoffs in the last 3 years as the best player. He's a complete two-way forward that many consider an all-star or all-NBA level player. There's not 29 players better than him. And I think it's because a lot of people are still holding on to what happened in the bubble back in 2020 and what happened last year in Tampa. That's not fair because those were special circumstances where the world stopped out of nowhere and he took a lot of time off. We saw how sluggish he looked in the bubble with the time off. He just didn't look like himself the whole time, and in 2021 they had a shortened off season and he still couldn't catch his rhythm. Even though he was coming off shoulder surgery in the off-season, I feel like with the time off to clear his mind and a return back to Toronto, it really helped him. And you saw that this past season when he averaged 23 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and by far had the best year of his career. Going into next season with a clear mind and a high note, I'm expecting Pascal to be even better next year. This will be the first time since winning the championship back in 2019 where Pascal had an extended offseason to really work on his game. He said in the past he wants to develop into a 3-level scorer, and he could do that by developing the pull-up shooting and the 3-point range. With his work ethic and track record, I wouldn't count it out. Now let's talk about his teammate and the second best player on this team, Fred VanVleet. He's another player with an incredible journey. Went from undrafted to one of the league's best point guards right now. Ever since his arrival back in 2016, there's been a question about whether he can one day be the successor to Kyle Lowry. Last season was his first year as the main point guard without sharing, and he did a fantastic job. Before the knee injury that slowed him down, he was putting up insane numbers and carrying the team. He was averaging like 22 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists on good efficiency, plus he became the 5th undrafted All-Star ever, joining Connie Hawkins, Ben Wells, Brad Miller, and John Stark. The knee issues really compromised him on both ends last season, so in the second half he just wasn't the same player. The hope is this isn't some lingering issue that affects his long-term health and he gets back into form next season. Because he's one of the most impactful players in the league based on the advanced stats and metrics, and he's also one of the game's best shooters, two-way players. The Raptors are pretty weak at the point guard spot and they need Fred VanVleet at his best. Really, the next step for him is to finish better at the rim, but due to his athleticism and size, I don't see that happening. He needs to add a floater game. Also, I think his playmaking and decision making could take another step forward. As he gets more experience, I believe that will happen. It's easy to forget this was his first year as the main point guard without sharing with Kyle Lowry, so there's a learning curve to it. I'm expecting him to eventually transition to the number 3 option, playing alongside Siakam and Scottie. Now let's talk about the 2021 Rookie of the Year and future franchise face, Scotty Barnes. A month ago, I made a video talking about his ceiling. If you guys want to watch that, I'll put a link at the end. I think he has everything to be a top 15 player in the league one day. The size, athleticism, the feel for the game, the two-way impact, he has it all. To me, I think he's going to end up the modern day Scottie Pippen. I've said this in a past video and I'll continue to say it. He's going to help the Raptors contend for a very long time. For this next season, I do think his development in year 2 will be very important in determining how far the Raptors get. I do think he has the potential to be the second best player on this team after next season. But it entirely depends on just how much better he gets as an offensive player in terms of the shooting and the on-ball creation. And it's also going to be interesting to see how he's used in year 2, because when the starting 5 was healthy, he was a little up and down, but when one of the starters were out, he played his best basketball. So maybe next season what you'll see is they'll use him more with the bench lineups and let him run the show. I'm not expecting a huge leap from Scottie in year 2, but I do expect him to have a very good year. He can take a step up in the shooting department, showcase that playmaking more, and become more of a consistent defender. If he averages, let's say, 19 points, 8 rebounds, and 4.5 assists, I would consider that a very good sophomore year. Scotty Barnes has a chance to develop into a very special and unique talent. Nobody saw him win Rookie of the Year coming. Maybe he's just one of those special ones who continue to surprise and he makes an all-star game in year 2. Who knows? Now it's a part of the video where I tell you what I expect from the Raptors next season. I think there's a very good chance they replicate exactly what they did last year. They'll win about 46 to 50 games and be a 4 or 5 seed in the East again. It's a little bit of a hot take depending on who you are, but this team has talent, they have continuity, and they have an identity. They'll be led by a star trio of Siakam, Scottie, and VanVleet, followed by guys like OG, Gary Trent, and Precious Achiuwa off the bench. Besides Otto Porter, they didn't really add anything significant this offseason, banking on internal growth, which is smart because they'll be very good in the present, and I like how they look long term also. Scotty Barnes can one day develop into that true superstar. The Raptors will be contenders for a very, very long time. So do you guys agree with me or disagree? Let me know in the comments. Again, please like, share, subscribe. It helps out the channel for more future content. If you guys want more future basketball opinions and breakdowns, this is the channel to be at. And like I always say, we're called Hoops Convo for a reason. Thanks and take care.